What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchets REACT, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction. So excited about this video. If you're new to us
and we're new to you,
make sure you scroll down,
hit that subscribe button,
and turn on the post notification bell
because we're on the road to 200K.
And we cannot get there without you guys, alright? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
When I was at school, I wasn't taught anything about black soldiers in World War One.
I had a faint idea that they might have been involved, but I didn't know the extent to which.
I definitely think awareness needs to be brought to it so people can acknowledge that a lot of people from British colonies fought and gave their lives for the exact same thing that many British ancestors gave their life for.
Black subjects had their actions during the war written out of history.
Written out of history.
This is the story
crazy.
of whitewashing history, the old history you don't learn at school. We're constantly reminded of the sacrifices of young British white men. Yet more than 4 million non-European and non-white soldiers and auxiliaries participated in the war. This included 1.5 million from...
4 million.
Is it going in your spirit yet?
That's a lot not to learn about him.
That's a lot to to take him out of history.
Now listen, we have a lot of flaws when it comes to our history here.
Yeah.
But I am proud that I learned about our history in school.
Yeah. 100%.
Although the perspectives were a little off, you know.
Yeah.
I'm still glad that I learned about the Tuskegee Airmen. I learned about the women.
Mm-hmm.
We learned about all these important figures.
She said 4 trillion, right? No, 4 million. Okay, just checking. And out of all 4 million, you know, the fact that, you know, being black, just in general, that you was hated, you know what I'm saying, that you was pushed away, ran off, and this, that, and the third, at least somebody could have had a letter, something writing down their experience so they can tell this piece of it and how it really went down for them, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So people can get understanding on what was history and how it was impactful back at the times that they was doing their thing.
Right, because when you're learning about these things in history, you see yourself in there. You're like, at least we did this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this country treated us bad, but at least we helped with this.
Right.
They couldn't do this mission without us right here.
Facts.
You know, so I could not imagine going to school and not learning about it. Although our first introduction of us in the history books were y'all were slaves.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to picture my mind of being a Brit in the history class and not learning about it.
See, it hit different too, because like I can imagine walking inside of a bank, and I'm just speaking, right? I can imagine walking inside of a bank and trying to get a loan, but because I don't know a certain amount of information, I fumble the conversation, right? And now, but put that in perspective of being black in history class, where everyone else knows the information that you don't, and you still miss the information because it's not taught to you, but everybody else knows about it because it's the piece of history that they got to erase and whispered about.
Right.
That's the same feeling. That's basically the same feeling.
And I guess my question is just why?
Yeah.
And that is why I advocate for history being told the way it happened and not from anybody's one perspective.
Yeah.
Tell it how it happened. Every
Facts.
little piece counts.
Absolutely. Every little piece.
British India. More than 2 million from French colonies in Africa and Indochina. 400,000 African Americans.
What we talking about now?
100,000 Chinese laborers.
Go on back. What we
The
talking
old
about?
history
Did we
you
miss
don't
it?
learn at school.
She said 4 million.
We're constantly reminded of the sacrifices of young British white men. Yet more than 4 million non-European and non-white soldiers and auxiliaries participated in the war. This included 1.5 million from British India, more than 2 million from French colonies in Africa and Indochina, 400,000 African Americans, 100,000 Chinese laborers.
Find out like over 1 million people, like black people, contributed is crazy. Like even just last year we had the 100th anniversary of First World War One, and even then I didn't hear anything about it.
The people I always saw when we were talking about World War One or Two were always just strangely very happy European people at the army front, looking like they're having a great time winning the war, but nothing really engaging about the kind of rifts that may have happened between black and white soldiers and understanding how it actually was.
1919, Britain had won the war. A victory parade commenced through London. Despite more than 1 million black individuals fighting in the war, they cannot be seen taking part in the celebrations. Their participation has been largely ignored and overlooked. The army claimed they could not afford to transport foreign soldiers to London for the celebrations, but the reasons ran much deeper than this. Many within the ruling elite had big concerns about disturbing the racial hierarchy and damaging white supremacy. This was the era of the British Empire, and people believed in racial theories. One of the most popular argued that different races were competing for survival. In their minds, it was the survival of the fittest. In India, the British favoured martial races. They stereotyped ethnic groups. Some were seen as effeminate. Sikhs were seen as the perfect martial people, tall and strong and physically imposing. They were seen as worthy to partake in the Victory March of July 1919. They were viewed as a race with a higher status than African or Caribbean troops.
It's just a habit to completely erase who is being exploited. There's this entire kind of network of support that the West kind of leaned on and exploited.
When I was younger, I always used to wonder, why is it called World War if you can't see any element of world and the diversity that's in the world?
Negative stereotypes.
So there's no museums that has a telling story of black people in the war in Britain. Like,
I would hope so. This is the history classes, though.
oh, we're going with the classes.
Yeah, I would
So
hope.
museums, they have to have some stories at least on the walls.
I would hope. Y'all let us know. We haven't been to the UK before, so y'all let us know.
Not
And
being able to march? That's crazy.
Right. Earlier, I was talking about the Tuskegee Airmen. I know that did not happen during World War I. Okay? That was an example.
Okay.
Before y'all start. All right.
Typing was rife on both sides of the war. These ideas were not restricted to Britain. The same ethnic stereotyping was taking place in Germany too. But there, few people had ever met a black soldier. Instead, racism was used to attack black soldiers in the British or French armies. A pamphlet was published called The Employment, Contrary to International Law, of Coloured Troops upon the European Theatre of War by England and France. The pamphlet suggested colonial soldiers conducted terrible acts of brutality, including cutting body parts off of German soldiers. Coloured troops carried war trophies, the severed heads and fingers of German soldiers, wore ears which they have cut off as ornaments about their necks.
I distinctly recognise their dark complexion, their red turbans and wide trousers. I mean, what does that mean? That could be anyone.
Yet when Germans were captured by colonial troops, they were amazed to find that they weren't brutally murdered and were in fact treated rather well. But as we know, this was not purely a German phenomenon. Similar sentiments were held and disseminated in Britain. In Britain, journalist E.D. Morel wrote for the Daily Herald, France was thrusting her black savages still further into the heart of Germany. By giving black and brown people the opportunity to fight, to kill white men, they were, in the eyes of racial theorists, disrupting the world order.
Funny just looking at these pictures, how they go to such great lengths to make us look like these crazy people with these huge limbs. It seems like we're taller than every other person, like we're this huge monster coming to attack them. You don't even have to read German to know what this picture's trying to convey. Just like all the features, like the caricature itself is just really, really negative, really, really, really awful.
Black soldiers and sailors had contributed to the war. They had given their lives to fight for Crown, country and the Commonwealth. That didn't fit the image imperialists had for them.
In school, the world wars are probably the most taught things in history. When I think world wars, I just think Europe and America and maybe Russia. But it's crazy to think that so many people contributed and their contributions never been acknowledged.
History needs to be more accurately rewritten to ensure that the contribution of over 1 million black servicemen is remembered and isn't lost.
mean, I'm not surprised, and at the same time, I'm surprised. I mean, because even when, like, during the World Wars, there was black soldiers were still dealing with segregation, still being looked at and hated, even while they had on uniforms.
Right.
So I'm surprised at it, but at the same time, I'm not surprised because, you know, like, but just to see that they weren't mentioned at all in history, to no acknowledgement, no respect, nothing was given. So I can't imagine fighting for a country and then coming home just to fight the people that I'm fighting for.
Exactly.
Ugh.
And I remember that being one of the topic of discussions in history class.
Okay.
What they dealt with. They were fighting for a country, speaking of the United States now, they were fighting for a country where they were barely looked at as men.
Yeah, exactly.
Still barely looked at as human in
Exactly.
some people's eyes. You know, so I remember that being a topic of conversation. And although what they're taught now has changed so much in our schools, but at least when we were there, we were taught the gist of everything.
Yeah.
The gist. There was still a lot of stories and things that happened throughout history that we were not taught. But I just could not be in a history class and not see myself, especially being a citizen in this country. You know, I'm trying to picture myself in that class. I would question my existence in the country, my place.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you know, people can definitely put, you know, people control people through image. You know what I'm saying? So for so long, you guys have been dealing with the image of not seeing a black soldier. And I'm not saying how it is for you guys today, but in one time in history where it wasn't respected or acknowledged, you can only imagine how many photos they had of them when it was time for them to be celebrated. There was none.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So it's like...
we couldn't cover the cost. Yeah, so I wonder, in the other countries that they listed, did y'all learn about y'all people at all? Because I went into this video thinking that this would just be a UK video, but it wasn't. It was everybody's video, the world's video. You know, so let us know. How did you feel in history class? In your country, did they show a diverse people? Was it accurately told?
Yeah, and how are they showing the respects today?
Right.
With this, because that is important. I know this is annually, so they do these like once a year or whatnot, where they march and they show respects. We seen a video once where they had soldiers where they would go dine in and walk the streets and they would just get things, you know what I'm saying, like they'll be loved on and celebrated.
Yeah,
but how are they today with this? Like, I would like to know.
You know what's interesting to me about the UK? We reacted to Gander Bridge or something where the Brits basically had a little battle with our troops about the treatment of how they were not like enforcing the segregation laws against our black soldiers in the UK.
Yeah.
Like, when did that attitude change? Because I remember watching that video and being like, yay, UK, thank y'all for standing up for our people. But now it's like, when did that start to change? You know, like, what happened for them to have such a battle with the U.S. over troops, you know?
It's a lot, bro.
Yes. So we hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Be sure to subscribe. We'll see you soon. Peace.